welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is the podcast where we explore all things writing, publishing, and the impact of storytelling. In each episode, I'll share insights and strategies to help you navigate the book journey, whether you're writing, publishing, or already an author. Plus, you'll hear from inspiring authors who are using their book to change lives. And if you're passionate about storytelling and ready to make an impact, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, your host and Chief Editor at Smart Publishing. And today's episode is episode 32. It is called Recognizing and Overcoming Imposter Syndrome. This is something that, as somebody who leads a publishing company and is an editor, I see quite a bit. I feel like I've seen it even more here lately. And I don't think people always recognize it for what it is. So I thought it would be helpful to jump on here and talk about the unique ways that it shows up in book writing and publishing, because it may have some overlapping qualities with the way that it shows up in other areas of life. I think in most areas of life, there's quite a bit of self-sabotage that imposter syndrome can show up as. But, there are some very specific things that I see with authors for how it shows up. So let's kind of start at the top, talking about what is imposter syndrome. I think most people would define it as this, an underlying opinion that you have of yourself as somebody who is not worthy, or someone who's doesn't have the expertise, isn't smart enough, isn't rich enough, isn't enough in some sort of way to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. And we see that this is a phenomenon that occurs with people at surprising levels that you would never expect. To think that, people at certain levels that they're at, like CEOs of major organizations and stuff, experience imposter syndrome. But I think that that's a great point, because typically when there's someone where you're like, oh, wow, I would have never thought of that person as having imposter syndrome, it's because they understand how to recognize it and how to overcome it and how to work through. And that's the big difference. When you're like, yeah, but you're out here doing all these things. Well, they're doing all these things in spite of their imposter syndrome. So they're not allowing their imposter syndrome to hold them back from doing anything. They are acting in spite of it. So that's really the real goal. I would say what is at the root of imposter syndrome that is maybe talked about a little bit less is, I believe it is a psychological defense mechanism that can happen either consciously, or typically it's almost subconsciously, to protect your ego or your psyche from rejection. So I think that at its root is truly what imposter syndrome is. It is a way of protecting yourself from perceived failure or rejection. And unfortunately, when you allow that to happen, you also never get the chance to succeed, or the chance to be wildly accepted. So it's really important to know the signs so that you can recognize it. And then it's really important to know how to work through it. So we're going to talk about that here. And again, we're going to talk about it specific to writing books. So one of the big ways that it shows up is obsessive self-editing. Obsessive self-editing is a defense mechanism to keep you from ever finishing your book, thinking that you're going to refine and just fix this here and make this better. So any kind of perfectionist sort of tendencies that you have, any kind of self-editing at all, that is really just a procrastination method that is likely either conscious or like, semi-conscious or subconscious. That is all that is that's you keeping yourself from ever finishing a book because you're afraid that people aren't going to like it, nobody's going to care, nobody's going to read it, or maybe people will read it and they don't like it. And that's really the case with any of these ways that it shows up. Another way that it shows up is getting to the end of your book and being like, I just want to redo this whole thing. I'm at the end of my book. I've read through it. I'm not happy with it. I want to scrap this idea now, and now I want to go with something else. I've seen that happen. Again, all that is imposter syndrome. Your book is fine. Your book is probably pretty good. That's just you getting close to the finish line and getting cold feet right before hitting that finish line as you start to think about, your mental space gets freed up because you're not writing the book anymore. And so now instead of thinking about what goes in the book, you're thinking about what people might think of the book. So that is another way that it shows up: obsessive self-editing, and deciding that you want to scrap the idea when you get to the end of your book. It can also happen as you're going through your book. Maybe you're making progress, you're over halfway through, and then it can get to this point to where your brain almost intentionally stops focusing on the book and starts creating this feeling of confusion. Like, I don't even know what I'm writing about anymore. I don't even know where to go. And you might even have a really clear chapter map that's right there guiding you. And this is exactly what this chapter is. This is exactly what that chapter is. But I see this. Authors will have a very clear chapter map, a very clear outline, and then they start to try to deviate from it, or they stop paying attention to it or stop wanting to follow it. And again, that is just imposter syndrome showing up as a way to not finish the book, to basically be like, I don't even know what direction I'm going anymore. I mean, come on, how much of an excuse is that when you literally have a detailed outline or a detailed chapter map that is walking you through chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3? All you need to do is take that and do the next chapter. But what's happening is subconsciously, or maybe even semi-consciously, your brain is trying to stall. They're trying to hold out, and all the voices are coming in saying, no, this isn't the right thing, this isn't what you should have written about. Doubt, 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 seeding doubt, seeding doubt, seeding doubt. And then that is why you start feeling that way, or you start convincing yourself that you feel that way, even when there is a clear pathway. So that is another real way that it shows up. Another way is the book's already done. It's already pretty much edited. And I already talked about obsessive self-editing, so that, that can take shape of anywhere from you never even get past chapter 1 because you're constantly re-editing chapter 1, or you're all the way done with the book and you just keep going back and editing it over and over and over again, because again, it's not good enough. It's not, those voices showing up. But it can also show up as your book is done, and now you're caught in the feedback trap. You want 50 billion people to give you feedback, and as soon as you've gotten feedback from those 50 billion people, here's another, Joe Smith over here needs to give feedback on it now. And then you get stuck in this pattern where now, that's almost a way of keeping you from moving forward, because you need one more beta reader, one more person to give you feedback. And then what kind of is a tricky trap with that, tricky trap, say that 10 times fast, is that because of having too many beta readers and too many people giving feedback, mostly a lot of that is going to end up being conflicting feedback. You get really discouraged because now you're like, well, this person said this, but that person said that. And how do I apply all this feedback? You don't have to apply any of it. you're the writer at the end of the day, and the most important voice that you have is your editor's voice, somebody who is coming to it with an understanding of how to make it understandable to the reader, how to honor your vision while making it understandable to the reader. The problem with getting too many beta readers and too many, kind of random people giving feedback is they may have great feedback, but are they coming into it understanding and honoring what your initial vision for the book was? And if they're not, and they're trying to pull you in a different direction to write sort of a different book, well, it's no longer your vision, and it's no longer honoring your book anymore, right? And so I would take that feedback with a grain of salt. Now, if it's feedback that helps strengthen a position in the book, if it's feedback that helps to make it more clear or more convincing to the reader, if it's feedback that strengthens what is already there, that's really great feedback. That's the feedback that you're looking for. However, if it's feedback that turns it into something different, or turns it into a voice that's no longer yours, or brings it in a direction where it's potentially dangerous or harmful to you legally, then that's feedback that you should take with a grain of salt. So yeah, that's another way that it shows up. Yet another way that it shows up is going over and over cover design and never being satisfied with any type of cover design that you get. That is one of those other, okay, we're done with a book now, the book's edited, we just need this cover. But I don't quite like this one, I don't quite like that one. The way when it's procrastination is if you cannot clearly articulate, or you can't take chat GPT and use AI to create a really, really close render to exactly what you want. If you can't do that, and you can't clearly articulate what it is that you want, then that is probably your subconscious trying to stall you from putting the book out. So I'm racking my brain. Those are probably the most popular ways that I have seen imposter syndrome show up in authorship, when people are writing and publishing a book. Because think about that. Once you get past that point, once you get past the point of the book is edited, especially the interior design is done, because there's no going back after that. That's a non-editable form of your book. And then you've got the cover design done. Well, now we're getting the proof copy. The purpose of a proof copy should just be to make sure that the print came out right and there's no major errors. It should not be to evaluate, go back and then redo your book again, because at that point it's finalized. Then all there is from there is picking your launch date and publishing it. So anything around editing, self-editing, reworking, throwing out and scrapping your idea, anything around getting feedback after feedback after feedback. Well, I still feel like I need more feedback. Anything around stalling on the cover design or never being satisfied with a cover design. All of those are signs that imposter syndrome is at play, and you have a psychological defense mechanism going on that is trying to keep you safe from the harm of negative feedback, or what's worse, crickets, nobody caring at all. So what do you do about it? There's a book. Hey, I'm a publisher, a writer, and an editor. A book is always the answer in my world. There's a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F asterisk CK. You might start there. Really, the bottom line is, just doing what you're going to do and being your utmost authentic self, and letting any of the doubt seeding voices, whether they're in your own head or from your childhood and still in your own head, or actual voices coming in, letting those fall by the wayside. Honestly, that's really all that you can do. that is, I am a person who has experienced imposter syndrome like everybody out there. I have published, multiple books now, and the only thing that has gotten me out of that is not thinking about myself, but instead thinking about the mission. That's what's really important. So if you can get your thoughts focused around how many people your book can help, what mission you're on, um, what inspiring or motivating or inspirational message you have to bring others to help them not have to struggle the way that you did through your book, then that's going to be what fills your head. And all of a sudden, that foot dragging or negative anticipation actually turns into urgency, actually turns into you thinking, wow, I've got to get this out sooner because there are people who need this. And so I might think about, I am working with an author right now on a book that is a first of its kind book around training the church to recognize moral injury and to help people in the congregation who are experiencing moral injury. And he has this huge sense of urgency in getting this out because this is a real issue that a lot of people out there are experiencing, that very few even understand the concept, let alone how to help people through something like this. And it is something that really, really separates these folks, not just from community, but through their relationship with God, through a healthy relationship with themselves. And, some people experiencing, moral injury, it's something that can even lead to suicidal thoughts or at worst, taking one's own life. And so there's a lot of urgency around it. It's a really important topic. And so once you start, and so if you notice, like he's not thinking about himself in any of this. He's thinking about the subject matter. He's thinking about the people who need to be helped through this. And there is a lot of urgency in getting it out because he's spending time thinking about the mission, not about himself or how this will impact himself. And so I would say that that's probably the best way to overcome imposter syndrome is turn your thoughts from inside out. Turn them inside out. So instead of thinking inward about yourself and what might happen to you, think outward about what your mission is and all of the people who your book can positively impact and all those people who need your book. And what's interesting about that is that won't just get you through imposter syndrome. It's not just a way to combat it. It's actually a great way to champion your book moving forward. So it's another thing that we see all the time in publishing is all this energy leading up to the launch date. And then after the launch, it's just like, we never hear about the book anymore because the author either was too inward thinking and wasn't thinking about all the people out there who could be positively impacted by the work that they've written, um, or they just didn't have a plan in place. But I feel like if you are very, very focused on your mission and how that book powers your mission and how that book helps people, it will always be a part of your conversation. It will always be something that you're promoting. I use him a lot as an example because he's like relentless about it. But Dr. Carter Check is an excellent example of somebody with healing in the wild, somebody who is on a mission. And I've never heard that guy talk about, well, what if somebody thinks this about me, or what if somebody thinks that about me, because his entire headspace is full of how he can use his work that he's written. And he's written a massive amount more since, because let me tell you, this guy is on a mission. He's written like 10, 11 books at this point. I think he's writing a new 3-part series too. So this guy is on a relentless mission to help people through his writing. And because of that, if you follow him or just go look on his page at Facebook, you will see that this is sort of it's like a center point. It's a cornerstone of who he is and how he is serving people through his purpose, through his God-given purpose in the world. It's a beautiful and wonderful example. Yeah, I would say, now that you understand some of the ways that imposter syndrome shows up when you're writing a book, you're thinking about writing a book. Oh, here's another way it shows up where you never even get anything written. You keep thinking about writing a book and you never start. That's I left the biggest one out. That's probably the number one way imposter syndrome shows up in authorship. All of those folks out there who want to write a book who haven't even started yet because they don't have enough time. I wrote the 1-hour author. You can literally write a book in an hour or less a week. If you do audio recording, 40 minutes a week. 40 minutes a week. Do not tell me you don't have 40 minutes. So that's the excuse of I don't have enough time or now isn't the right time. That is imposter syndrome showing up right there. That is like a case in point, imposter syndrome in the book writing and publishing world. So, now that you know all the different ways that it shows up, the biggest way through it is to have a mission, have a clear mission. What is your purpose? What is the impact you're wanting this book to have? And who are you trying to help? And let that populate your mind. Let those be the thoughts that you're thinking about every day. And I'm telling you that one switch will be the difference between you finding ways to, procrastinate, whether it's intentional or unintentional, and you finding ways to speed up the process and get it out there because there's this sense of urgency that the world needs your book and it needs it now. So I hope that this was helpful. If you're working through anything, I always invite everybody to connect with me. I am on Facebook, Renée Lautermilch, Lautermilch. I am the only one in the world, so I'm the only one who should show up. If there's a spoof account, please tell me about it so I can report it. But I'm the only Renée Lautermilch on there, so just search me, add me. Happy to have you. Feel free to direct message me about anything. You can also find me on smartpublishingservices.com. Lots of educational stuff there. We've got courses, we've got resources, I've got a whole blog, total education hub for anybody who's writing and publishing a book. And of course, if you have not already subscribed to this show, hit that subscribe button now. And if you would, do me a favor, less than 60 seconds it takes to just write a short review and rate this show. It helps it to get out in front of more listeners who could benefit from this content. So until next time, as I always say, don't let imposter syndrome win. Keep writing your story and finish writing your story, and then get your story published and out there because the world needs your voice. Until next time, take care.